well. And basically, the GFF is designed to have a two-day discussion and action in a hybrid format, online and in presence, to, of course, ensure global reach and participation of the widest constituencies possible around the globe. The idea is to see the March Forum as a continuum, as a process. And this means that before, during, and after, we will have multiple consultation tracks at the national, at the regional, at the thematic levels, e-consultations, a monthly OCA dialogue series that we have been having for the past months, under the umbrella of C4UN and hosted by Baha'i. And that would be the idea, followed by a civil society UN missions engagement day, meaning a dialogue with governments. So we will hear later more details about the purpose, the objectives, the modalities of the GFF, but more importantly, we are gathered today because we want to hear from you. You know, what are your expectations? What would be your advice, your contribution to ensure, of course, that the process is inclusive and brings multiple voices that works across sectors and scales as well. So for the GFF to have an impact, and we basically need you. You know, we need your engagement, your advice. We need to make sure that the UN we need and we deserve is not encapsulated in New York or Geneva, for that matter, without a sense of reality, you know, a sense of the very foundational purposes of the UN, which is to serve the peoples in need, to free us from war, from need, to ensure that we all live in dignity and can enjoy our full rights, and that we also live in a safe and healthy environment, and that we act with responsibility with future generations so they inherit a planet that is still alive. And basically the question for us to ask ourselves is why are the voices, the creativity, the political traction from civil society so important and so much needed today? And I would say, looking at what is happening at COP27 as we speak, you know, the answer is that our multilateral systems are not responding timely, effectively to the world of chaos, of injustice, and of violence that we live in. And people worldwide, and you know, because you have your own constituencies and you work at different levels and in different countries, but the people worldwide are increasingly losing trust and interest in international organizations, including the United Nations. And yet, at the same time, we know that governments or bureaucracies cannot do the heavy lifting for a real transformation alone. So social ownership of decisions, mutual accountability, adequate institutional designs are vital for systems change. That's what the GFF is about, basically, a space to constructively co-create, reshape, rejuvenate the UN and key multilateral institutions, including financial institutions, but not only structurally, not only in the paper, but also in reshaping the narratives, realigning the priorities, realigning investment to the places and peoples that are in need and disadvantaged. So in sum, it is about power sharing and co-responsibility. So it is a big thing that we have undertaken collectively. And I would say, again, that's what the GFF is about. So once again, welcome to this first coordination ecosystem meeting. We're very happy to see that it's so populated. It represents so many regions and constituencies. That's exactly the diversity we want and we need. So thank you again for being here. Just greetings to my co-chair of the C4UN, Dan Perel, and back to you, dear Nudara.
Thank you so much, Maria, for your wise and inspirational words, as always. Today is really about laying out what it is that the initiative is working on and inviting those of you on this call to get involved in co-creating anything that sparks your interest, as Maria said. So what we'll now sort of do is bring forward basically elevator pitches of activities that we actively invite you to sort of follow up on, get details with, and get involved with. So for sort of very brief surface level introductions to the different initiatives and ideas that we've got going on. And again, this is sort of very brief elevator pitches because we do actively encourage you to follow up for details on anything that sparks your interest. So without further ado, here is Dan to tell you a bit about the People's Pact for the Future and programming towards the Global Futures Forum. So Dan, over to you.
Hi there. Thank you so much, Nudara, and thank you, Maria Fernanda. I'm Dan Perel from the Baha'i International Community and a co-chair of the C4UN. And I'm calling from New York, where I fear, as Maria Fernanda said, I probably have no sense of reality. So it would be great to hear a bit more from others. So yes, very quickly, this Global Futures Forum, as I understand it, is essentially a process rather than an event. That is to say that there's a whole bunch of different ways to engage and create and learn from each other, rather than working specifically towards one 2-day session that will come and go with yet another gathering with limited results. We're hoping that, conceiving of it as a process from now into 2024 and even 25, we can then have a greater impact. So the way that we're starting to consolidate some of the thinking for what we're calling a People's Pact, which will essentially be a citizen response or contribution alongside the Pact for the Future that the member states have agreed that they will write in 2024, is we're focused around 6 areas at the moment, though there is a 7th, which is called Other. So there's always room for more. And these 6 areas are a mashup of what the UN focuses on, has always focused on, like the 3 pillars of the UN, but also a couple of the ideas that are presented in the Secretary General's Our Common Agenda report. So broadly, these 6 themes that we're looking at are development, digital governance, environmental governance, global financial architecture, human rights and civil society participation, and then peace and security. And in case you weren't taking notes, I've put them in the chat here. So because this is a process, we're looking actually for the 2023 Global Futures Forum in presumably March to have mostly a set of recommendations. We're not looking for a long document with a lot of prose, but sort of 3 to 5 recommendations from each of these areas. And because, just as an asterisk, because the SDG Summit is taking place in 2023, we want to make sure that within each of these 6, at least 1 or 2 have specific ties to the SDGs. I mean, they all likely will in some way, but this is just sort of a strategic advocacy proposal. And then what we'll do during the Global Futures Forum, hopefully, is not just backseat drive and say, you should do this, United Nations, but actually articulate how to do it. It's very easy to say, and Andreas, because I love you and you're my friend, it's very easy to say the UN should have a parliamentary assembly. What we want to do is also say how to get from where we are to that point. And Andreas has done loads of work on this, so he knows that it's okay for me to call him out on it because he's got the chops to back it all up. So that all said, that's sort of the hope. And we'll do this firstly by, of course, bringing together folks who are interested in co-leading on any of these 6 areas. I put another link in the chat box for the form for participating. And if you want more information on the process, see here. Now I'm going to quickly, oh yes, and in this process we'll have regional futures forums, so a lot of research, including a youth research track, e-consultations, all kinds of fun things that you'll hear about. And now I've also been asked to make a quick pitch on the actual program. And this is not my voice, this is somebody else's voice coming through me. It just so happens that they're in Australia, where it is 2 in the morning. So I figure we let that individual sleep. So the Global Futures Forum, as it stands, will run about 2 days with those 6 tracks at the moment, sort of following along these lines. It'll be a mixture of plenaries where we open it up for broad consultation, and then track system where you actually try to delve more deeply into the recommendations. You select that track and you follow it throughout the 2 days. This will be designed, of course, in an inclusive and interactive way, intergenerational, representational, all of those good words, but try to make it more than words and actually have it meaningful. And so we want to flatten it a bit and not have it be people like Dan, who again is out of touch with reality, talking to others, but actually all of us together co-creating these spaces. We're also going to include, we're going to try to include different types of dialogue. So, you know, those of you who are familiar with COP may be aware of this Talanoa dialogue style. We may try to incorporate that. We're really trying to be creative. So it's not just another Zoom call that you're in for 2 days or a meeting in a meeting room that you're in for 2 days, but actually something exciting and innovative. And then at the end of those 2 days, we'll have a fleshed out set of not only recommendations, but a process for how to make those recommendations real, that we can then take as advocacy tools to member state colleagues and others. And then it will continue to evolve over the course of the coming year in advance of first the ministerial for the Summit of the Future in September 23, and then the Summit of the Future in 24. And so this will all sort of congeal over the course of time in a really organic and beautiful process, at least in my mind. And hopefully you and Nudara and everyone on this call can help make what's in my head come to fruition and more. So thank you so much, Nudara, and to all of you for bearing with me. And thank you, Andreas, for being the butt of my little contribution. I just happened to see your face.
Thank you so much, Dan, for all of this. And just to also flag that Dan has put links in the chat. Our team is also just posting things in the chat for you to follow up on as well, for more details on the People's Pact process and so forth. So now here is Sophia to tell us a little bit about the ideas for the Global Futures Forum Youth Track. Sophia, over to you for your elevator pitch.
Thank you, Nudara. Hello, everyone. My name is Sofia. I'm a representative of the UNESCO SDG for Youth Network, and I'm from Argentina, so very far from New York. And as Nudara just mentioned, I'm going to talk to you more about the ideas and the activities we're working on to achieve a proper youth engagement during all of this forum, before, during, and also after as well. So first of all, we're thinking about hosting an informative session for more young people to be involved in the process, to know about this forum, and also to be engaged and participate. And during the forum, we're thinking about hosting a reception only for young people and also some stakeholders for them to interact and to create a proper networking. That will be at the beginning of the forum, so they will have these connections and create these bonds even from the start. And also for the forum, we're thinking about organizing a youth pavilion, having this space that we have like proof from other events that have amazing results, and to think about panels, session, and more engaging activities as well for that space. And last but not least, as already has been mentioned here, we already have an open call for youth researchers papers, and we're thinking about how to do an activity with all of these even during the forum to give bring more light into this, for the youth researchers that are presenting these papers to also have this space. So we are thinking about that, but the main thing we're trying to achieve with this is a proper youth engagement, but also this like ownership, as already has been mentioned by Maria Fernanda, of the process from the youth and also the civil society organizations that are going to be taking part of.
Thank you so much, Sophia, for that brilliantly concise explanation. There was a lot that she also mentioned there. So again, there are links in the chat if you're interested in being involved with or following up on any of this. And yeah, just really those young authors as research is something that we're trying to champion and bring sort of research-backed advocacy into the forefront of what we're doing. So With thanks to Sophia for keeping it brief and with the same invitation headed to our next elevator pitch, I'm very happy to welcome Jeff and Fergus, or as they're now being known, JFergus, to tell you about the Regional Futures Forums and ways to get involved. Jeff and Fergus, over to you.
Thank you so much, Nadara. I don't see Fergus on the call. Perhaps he is, but with so many wonderful faces before me, I'm not sure if he's on the call. But permit me to begin anyway, and then Fergus, if you're available. So I'm Jeffrey Huffines. I'm Senior Advisor to C4UN. I'm based in New York, but at the moment I'm visiting my parents in South Carolina for U.S. Thanksgiving next week. And so it's great to join you all here. So, building on the first round of the C4UN regional consultations that were undertaken in June 2021, where we discussed priority sessions on the role of civil society in the UN in each of the 5 regions globally, we're inviting national and regional C4UN partners and global civil society to organize and participate in another round of regional discussions. And as Maria and Dan had mentioned, these regional futures forums are intended to bring critical and diverse intergenerational civil society perspectives into the preparations for the so as Dan mentioned, a key outcome of the forum will be the development of a proposed People's Pact for the Future as our contribution and as an advocacy document to feed into the General Assembly's preparatory negotiations on the Intergovernmental UN Pact for the Future and other related Summit of the Future outcome instruments. So Fergus and myself and other members of the team, we have already reached out to key regional partners in each of the 5 regions to begin a discussion so that each of the regions will take ownership in developing their own agenda, as well as schedule the regional consultations accordingly. We will put into the chat box a toolkit that we have developed to facilitate the organization of these regional consultations, which includes a suggested timeline, a concept note, as well as documentation of the previous regional consultations that had taken place, and of course includes the dates of each of the ECOSOC regional sustainable development forums that will be taking place. The idea is that the original idea was that these regional consultations would, of course, feed into the Global Futures Forum. But we also wanted to take the opportunity to have these regional consultations feed into each of the ECOSOC regional sustainable development forums taking place in March and April. Now, we already had one consultation with our partners in the Latin American Caribbean region, and they had informed us that the regional Sustainable Development Forum consultation would be taking place actually on 24th and 28th of April in Santiago, Chile. So of course that is after the Global Futures Forum in March. So one idea is to actually use the Global Futures Forum as an opportunity to launch regional consultations as part of an ongoing process, part of an ongoing discussion throughout the year in 2023 into 2024. So we look forward to continuing this conversation with our regional partners, keeping in mind that each of the regions have their own particularities, their own circumstances, their own key priorities, and so we will discuss these with each of the regions, and we will let everyone know on a global basis the schedule for these regional consultations to take place. Fergus, did I miss anything?
No, that was fine, Jeff. Your audio was a little awkward at times, but I think people got the message, and I did put the regional Futures Forums toolkit in the chat for people to take a deeper dive when they have time. Thanks a lot.
Great. Thank you. Nadara, back to you.
Thank you so much, Jeff and Fergus. And actually, Fergus, I think there was another link that you put in the chat. So if you could share the toolkit, that would be great. Thanks so much. I will now jump in to introduce the idea of an information clearinghouse that we hope will build as an outcome of the Global Futures Forum and for the 6 months leading into the September intergovernmental meetings. So this is sort of the general idea of the Global Futures Forum, is to have a forum in March, and then that sort of is 6 months leading into the big sort of intergovernmental moments happening in September of that year. So in 2023, that would be the Summit of the Future Ministerial Meeting and the SDG Summit. The hope then is that if we have a successful 2023 forum, we'd be able to continue in 2024 to have one just before the Summit of the Future, and maybe even 2025 before the World Social Summit. But to start with 2023 and to expand on making the most of the 6 months leading from March into September, we're hoping to create a space that really expands the science policy interface and invites stakeholders to contribute to essentially a Summit of the Future, Our Common Agenda resource hub to both support missions with little bandwidth to stay on top of all the moving parts with regards to the Our Common Agenda follow-up process, but also to bridge the civil society community, the think tankers, the academic community, the foundations, to support the idea of research-backed advocacy. Again, we'll mention in the chat ways to get involved. We're still brainstorming this idea, but it really is to try and create a space where, you know, civil society is always saying, we have things to say, and try to streamline where we're sort of entering the intergovernmental conversations and providing resources that we do have quite freely available to missions that sometimes do lack the bandwidth to engage across the board. So this is the general idea. Again, we put in the chat, if you have any ideas on this front, please do get in touch. Next up is Monique to show you a little bit and give you a run through of the Global Futures Forum website. So Monique, over to you.
Thank you very much, Nudara. So yeah, I'm just going to give you a quick overview of the website, and you've already heard about a lot of the parts here, but I'll just walk you through them on our site. So if you go to the main C4UN website, which is c4unwn.org, you will find a tab in the menu for the Global Futures Forum. And here we'll see that our lovely new branding specifically for the GFF, as well as we have an opportunity to pre-register and express your interest in attending, whether in person or virtually. A little bit of a background here and then further information. So we have a tab on the background of the process and how we got here. So this is rather extensive, includes a summary timeline going from September of 2021 up through 2024. And then we also have an explanation of what exactly the Global Futures Forum is, the process and objectives. And again, you can go through there and look at the key objectives and look at ways of getting involved. We also have a page on the Regional Futures Forum, as Jeff and Fergus were just discussing. So you will find further information about that here, ideas of a draft program, background materials, and other resources. And probably most importantly for all of us here on the call today, we have a page on how to get involved. And again, that includes being able to pre-register for the forum, ways to learn more about joining the People's Pact for the Future drafting team, and a call for youth to contribute to the Youth Futures series. And as we go forward in this process, we'll be adding more items to the website. And so I invite you to return to it frequently to see those new items that are added. And I think that's about it.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Monique. And thank you again for helping putting together this website as well. And in case you want to do, to those of you on this call, any cross promotion or featuring on your own platforms, or would like access to any of the communications products, this is not owned by anyone. It really is a global collective sort of action that we're calling for. So please do feel free to use our logos, our brands, whatever has been created on your platforms as well to cross promote. And to tell you a little bit more about how you can do that, here's our social media and outreach team to invite you to get involved. So Karamot and Maddie, over to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to speak on behalf of Karamot and I today. I'm a graduate student in international affairs at the New School based in New York City. I also work closely with Nadar at the Simpson Center. And our colleague Karamot is an SDG leader and lawyer based in Nigeria. So really briefly, I'll just talk about our social media platforms that we've been working on so we can have a lot of time for an open discussion. Our two platforms we will use for the GFF are Twitter and Instagram, which you can find at the Global Futures Forum, which Karamot has shared in the chat. And the open platform we'll be using to share content and create a sort of collaborative workspace which everyone is open to share their ideas on is Trello. We've started to develop the board so far and have a few different cards, which are tweets that you're welcome to use on your organization's account or your personal accounts. Karamot, if you don't mind sharing. Yes, thank you, Nadar. And we'll continue to populate the Trello with new content as time progresses. But this is an open platform, so please feel free to share any ideas, or you can reach out to Karamot or I directly on ways you want to get more involved with the face we're putting out to the world for the Global Futures Forum. All right, back to you, Nadar.
Thank you so much, Maddie. That brings us to the conclusion of our sort of very quick elevator pitch moments of what we've got going on. I hope that some of those things perked your interest in this group. And really, again, this is an open call, an open invitation to help co-create, co-design, and help shape all these initiatives as they're starting to take shape and take form. The final thing for me to do is just place a link in the chat for you to join the coordination ecosystem. So this was really an informative town hall for anyone who expressed interest in being a part of this initiative. This is sort of a more formal get involved at an organizational level with the coordination ecosystem, the partner network. So as I said, again, the link is in the chat for that. Everything that we've discussed today is also available on the Global Futures Forum website. So there's more information and follow up there. Our contact information is also there. And please feel free to reach out to myself or anyone else that spoke today with regards to any of the above. But this is the sort of more important, more exciting section of this call now, is to hear from all of you. So are there any sort of questions, thoughts, ideas, or reactions? Please do try to keep them as brief as possible so that we can go through as many people as possible as well for the ideas. But please just feel free to raise your hands and then we'll call on you if there are also questions to specific people. Happy to address those as well. Javier, yes. Javier, do you want to unmute yourself and jump right in? There we go.
Yes, I hope you're hearing me. I'm facing some problems with my connection. That's why I'm connected for my phone. First of all, thank you for the opportunity and the work you're doing. I think that it is a very necessary initiative, and we are facing a key time in the UN history, also in our life's history as humanity. So initiatives like this one are really critical. What I want to propose is beyond the 6 or 7 thematic groups that you have organized, it could be helpful to create a channel to discuss these issues, focusing these issues in regional groups. I know that in your tools, you have a regional division of the people that is engaged. It will be useful if you can update the information there, because I see that there are many people here that is not in that list. And maybe we can start also creating discussions at the regional level to feed the global discussions. If you want, I am open to start with the work in Latin America and the Caribbean, but my suggestion is just that one. Let's replicate the global structure at the regional level to have inputs.
Absolutely. Thank you
much.
so much, Javier. That's brilliant. And as I said, no great idea goes unpunished. So thank you for agreeing to take that up in the Latin America region as well. Another thing to flag is that we will be putting out a sort of toolkit on the regional forums and the futures forums that is essentially a structure that you can forward on. So it's going to be in sort of graphic designed, very easy to view presentation format that you can use to sort of go out there and create your own regional forums as well. So I think a more coordinated effort, as Javier put forward, is a brilliant idea, but we're also going to come up with this toolkit just to invite anyone to create a regional forum. Alan, over to you.
Thank you very much. My name's Alan Ware. I'm Global Coordinator of Parliamentarians for Nuclear Non-Proliferation and Disarmament, and I'm also a member of the World Future Council. And I've got comments from both of those, I call them constituencies. Firstly, excellent work that your team's been doing on building civil society engagement in the Summit of the Future, outline how to engage in different ways through regions, also through thematic strands. I also want to bring in constituencies. I've seen there's been a couple of comments on key constituencies in the chat box. So I'm with, as I said, Parliamentarians for Nuclear Non-Proliferation and Disarmament. So a key constituency I'm wanting to bring into this process is parliamentarians, legislators. So we're looking at strands and ways of doing that. I'm calling from the European Parliament today. We're setting up an event to highlight the UN Summit of the Future early in the new year. Here we're also looking at doing an event with the Interparliamentary Union, but we're just working on the details of that. That's the Global Coalition of Parliaments, and there should be other ways. So I'm mentioning that in case others are working with parliamentarians to know, because there could be some coordination and work with those. Secondly, from the side of the World Future Council, we have a working group on the Summit of the Future. Maria Fernanda Espinosa, who's also the chair here, is on that working group with myself and Neshan Gunasekara from Sri Lanka. And what we're looking at for World Future Council inputting into this process is we highlight effective policies to protect the future. We think that while it's fine to sort of criticize what governments are doing and put calls out for what they should be doing, it's also good to highlight where there are effective policies that are in operation that can be spread, expanded, to demonstrate that it's possible, those things. So that's one thing we'll be bringing to this, and we're working on the details now, events to highlight effective policies for protecting the future. And finally, we're working in partnership with Youth Fusion, which is a global youth network. Their leaders apologize, or their coordinators apologize. They couldn't come on the call today, but they are going to be participating in the process. One of the key points they wanted me to bring into the conversation today was that it's all very well to highlight and provide spaces for youth, but it's very important not to sort of sideline youth and put it in a box. It's really important to bring youth into all of the strands and to think more about engaging as an intergenerational process, not just as a youth versus others, but building as much intergenerational dialogue, cooperation into all of the strands. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for all of that, Alan. And the other thing I think we're keen for youth, calling on people that work with youth on this call, but also young people on this call, is we'd love to have that sort of intergenerational leadership. So if young people are interested in, for example, leading on some of the thematic tracks that Dan mentioned, please do reach out. This is exactly the type of thing that we really would be calling for. And Alan mentioned parliamentarians. Here comes another resident fellow expert in the parliamentarian field with the UN system. Andreas, over to you.
Thank you very much, and congratulations also from me on this exciting plans you have for the Global Futures Forum and the other processes. My name is Andreas Bummel. I'm running Democracy Without Borders, and we are also co-convening with We the People's Campaign. And I have a question concerning the 6 thematic pillars that exist. What do we do if we discover items that we feel cannot be squeezed into that format? I think it's been recognized widely already that the OCA does not necessarily cover everything that is relevant. So I believe that is a big question in substantive ways. And I also want to put on record Democracy Without Borders' interest in being involved on this subject of democratic participation and representation of citizens and civil society. And then last question, well, how certain are we already now that the Futures Forum will take place in March? I'm excited and hope it is already quite certain. Thank you.
Dan, do you want to jump right in here? And just on the March, we're quite certain, and we'll confirm sort of as soon as possible on the exact dates, but mostly March. But Dan, on the other question.
Yes, so about those 6 areas. So if you try to slice up the United Nations into any categories, either you end up with just a couple pillars that need to be, creatively stretched, or you end up with an amalgam of 17, for example, different categories that are still not fully inclusive. So we decided let's just go with 6 plus other. We don't know what will emerge. So maybe what emerges is that there's something we totally missed that is way better, more robust, more well thought out, more achievable, all of these things, then let's do it. I mean, this is nothing is set in stone for sure. This is ours to create. We just wanted to start a foundation for this kind of conversation.
I hope that addresses your concern. And I also saw some comments of the same nature at the chat box. Henk-Jan, over to you.
Good morning, everyone from New York. Good afternoon, good evening. Wonderful to see you and some former colleagues. I just wanted to mention that some of you are aware, perhaps, but I'm also convening a group of like-minded organizations, particularly focused on the Summit of the Future. So I see this complementary to what you're doing, and really I think it can benefit what you're doing. The group that I'm convening is a little bit broader. It also includes UN entities and other international intergovernmental organizations, like the organization that I represent here at the UN, the International Development Law Organization. The purpose of the group that I'm convening is directly focusing on the negotiations that are going on in New York at the UN. And we want to coordinate the monitoring of these negotiations. They identify joint advocacy moments that we can coalesce around. And also, develop, joint key messages. And that is, of course, also where we can really benefit from the work that you are doing. One other area I think where we are complementary, I think, is that we are particularly focused on issues around justice, inclusivity, equalities, rule of law, and Goal 16 issues. We meet every month, first Thursday in the month, 9 to 10:30. So the next meeting is on December 1st. And I will put in the chat my email, and please contact me if you want to join. So thanks so much, and really looking forward to engaging with all of you on this, what I think will be an exciting and interesting process. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Henk-Jan. Just to reiterate, it was so helpful, sort of the group that you convened as well, for us to gain a lot of perspective and make a lot of connections. So I do highly encourage everyone to reach out to Henk Jan's group and sort of be a part of tracking those sort of more formal negotiations. There's a WhatsApp chat there as well that's very active, so that's brilliant to be a part of. David, over to you.
Hi there. Yes. Thank you, Alan, for raising Youth Fusion's point about not putting youth in a box. We often talk, we older generation, about passing the baton. Well, the baton is not to be passed. The baton is to be shared. It's something that we should all be involved with. I was asking Nodara what happened to the Declaration for Future Generations, which seems to me to be, should be at the heart of the Summit of the Future. And she tells me it's in the development strand. However, I do think that as my generation is extremely guilty of severely compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs, as was promised by the definition of sustainable development, that should be a very sharp focus for the discussion of the Global Futures Forum. And certainly, I would like to feel that the regional approach that we have been talking about to our global network of young people will actually take on some kind of a structure so that ideas for that declaration and the other strands can be discussed at community level, school level, and then fed into a wider, larger regional meeting that then can feed into the Global Futures Forum in March. There may not be time to do that for this year, but I think as we start the process here, we should look at the ecosystems that we're creating and make sure that there is feed through from grassroots to the UN level. I wonder what others think about that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. And absolutely, I think, you know, it's exactly this kind of innovation, the work that you do, that we really do want to get involved in this coordination ecosystem. And just to, I mean, we came up with the name ecosystem. It's kind of out of the box, but with a purpose to say that everyone does play a slightly different role and it all fits together and it works. So not every organization has the grassroots connections to be doing the things that David, your organization at Peace Child, for example, is capable of doing, but we still do need that. So, you know, these coordination calls, the bringing together of the Global Futures Forum is really for everyone's to bring their niches together and try to do as much as possible with what we have. So thank you again for that. Georgios, over to you.
Thank you, Nodara, and many thanks to everybody who has organized this and the C4UN that are bringing us together. I wanted to ask also, where does the Global Resilience Council fit in those 6 areas? Because I hope that we seriously discuss and hopefully adopt as a team here this proposal put forward initially by Fox, but not kept only to ourselves. We hope and we think that's a very important issue that brings together all issues of human security. So is it environment, is it development, is it a bit of everything? It is also peace and security when the other Security Council does not work. So one thing is to think about that, because if we go again about silos without bringing them together, we're just reproducing the current system. The other thing is, it would be good to, if you could prepare like a list of main functions that each one of us can perform so that we don't duplicate. Like Henk Jan said, if they are following the intergovernmental process, and of course, Stimson and you and Richard, I know that inform us what happens in the negotiations, etc. If we have something like a newsletter or a place where we can go, or an organization to we can go, so we don't need to reproduce that function. And from our side, we have a lot of contacts now with think tanks from around the world, which is one part of civil society. We have done our regional think tank meetings, and we think we can bring on board that kind of capacity. But it was good to hear David and others. We need also that more grassroots mass organizations of civil society, the more grassroots level. And we should, I think, make an effort to bring in, as well as humanitarian organizations like from Oxfam to, many Friends of the Earth and others. So I think we have some gaps, and if we could make it really a powerful coalition that touches on all these kinds of non-state actors and of course the youth, we would be really powerful by April and for the official meetings afterwards. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Georgios. And the idea of a newsletter, I think, is great. If people are willing to hear from us that much more, I think that would be very helpful. And again, I'm putting in the chat box the form for the global to sign up for the coordination ecosystem, and that does sort of initially outline a couple different areas that you can get engaged with, but I do think there's definitely room for a little bit more delineation of work. We have 3 more hands, and I think that will bring us to the end of the meeting. So Edith, over to you. You're on mute, Edith.
There you go.
There we go.
Thank you, Nudara, and thank you for the great work that you are doing. Really appreciate it. I just had a couple of thoughts while I was listening to you and the presenters, and I also subscribe to the points of view of David and Georgios a lot, who spoke right before me. And so when speaking about the People's Pact, my thoughts were, first of all, around the digital divide, like if you do want to design a People's Pact, and how are you going to actually deal with the fact that 1 out of 3 people have never used the internet? We are doing all this on social media, on, these kinds of, high level fora and stuff like that. So the second is the linguistic divide. And I was also thinking about that, obviously your website is in English and everything else, but perhaps when you are designing your advocacy materials, when you are doing your regional consultation, so this is I think a really important factor somehow to reach those grassroots levels. I don't see fully your processes or how you are doing this, but I'm thinking more from the inclusivity level, and it's super challenging, I think, because you speak about the regional level consultation, and I was wondering if country level consultations would feed into that at some stage, or you are thinking about that or not. That was also a little bit around the same sort of notion or area, in order precisely to bring in those most marginalized voices, and also to provide some kind of a platform or a forum for those voices to be represented, and not necessarily through others. So those along the line, I had some thoughts while thinking about the very notion of People's Pact.
That's really helpful, Edith. And I think one thing, just to be very clear, is, we stand here presenting this all to you from a very humble position of, please help us make this better. So, these ideas are very welcome. It's also a case of, if you have any ways to further these ideas, please also let us know. Support with translation is always a big thing. If anyone has any experience with sort of the digital divide area, this really is a sort of call to action. More than anything. Hannah, over to you.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Thanks for the initiative. It's great to see all this already going on and to see so many colleagues. I would like to make reference to what Georgios also said, that to make this a very powerful coalition. I was wondering, and I haven't heard it yet in this meeting, we will see the next Global Sustainable Development Report next year out as well. And I was wondering, because the last GSDR and also the next one will propose again the 6 transformation areas and the 4 levers. So meaning we have these 6 entry points and 4 levers, and all 4 levers like governance, finance, and so on are meant for all 6 areas. And if there's a rationale why you are not using these, because they seem to be quite established in the UN context, and with the new GSDR, in which our co-chair of the council I'm working for is also co-head of the next GSDR. So I do know it will have a very prominent role when it will be published next year at the summit. And I just wonder if it maybe makes the work more powerful to align slightly to the GSDR. But that's just an idea I had, and a question at the same time.
That's really helpful to know, Hannah, and I think that's exactly why we wanted to have these types of conversations. As Dan mentioned earlier, this really was just about setting some sort of categorization, some clustering, to be able to have conversations like this about maybe what's right and what's wrong and what we can do better. So again, I'm going to put in the chat details on getting involved with this People's Pact and programming processes, and exactly ideas like these. I do hope you get involved and be a part of that conversation that helps to change the different ways that we approach the Global Futures Forum. So thank you again for this, Hannah. We're taking notes of everything that's being said so that we can try and build on this and digest it as much as possible. Kavengo, over to you to wrap us up.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is Kavengo, and I just want to pick up from where David and Georgios have left. I'm speaking from Nairobi, Kenya, and I represent Singapore. And my concern is about the inclusivity which they talked about in this process. I think there should be efforts on the part of the organizers and the steering group to make sure that they go out of their way to have contributions from across countries, nearly every country, and especially, particularly countries that are in crisis, like Somalia, for example, who feel so let down by the current system, countries like Afghanistan, countries like Ukraine, which are going through a lot and which do not feel the impact of the presence of the UN, and many others. And as we discuss this, we should ask, how did we end up discussing this kind of a thing at this time and age? It's because of the way the current UN was constituted. It was a marginalized affair. I mean, a marginalizing affair, I would think so. So we should try so much to learn from the mistakes of how the current UN was constituted, so that whatever it is that we come up with, you know, we do not deliver to the next generation that comes after us another 100 years of discussing how to correct the mistakes that we are trying, you know, that may come up today. So my effort is, can there be deliberate effort right now? Sure. Countries and different groups in all countries, and especially those in crisis, are important.
Thank you so much, Kavengo, for that sort of powerful message to wrap us up. And I see Maria nodding and approving with a big thumbs up. I think all of us feel the same way about it. Really is, we can't claim to be a Global Futures Forum unless we really are trying to be as global as possible in our outreach. That brings us up to the hour, and we want to set a precedence for the forum of how punctual we hope to be during the forum itself, and try and be as punctual during our planning calls as well. So again, I'm putting some follow-up in the chat with the form, with the website that details out everything that we've been discussing today as well. We have sort of this group here, we will be in touch with again, both with follow-up from this call and just notes on the different ideas that people put out there. We've taken a record of the chat box as well, and we'll go through it. We'll digest it, and we'll send around an email. But then please also just be aware that we will have another monthly call like this with the coordination ecosystem in December or early January, trying to maneuver our way around the holiday period as well. So please keep an eye out, please be involved, please do reach out to any and all of us about being a part of really shaping this. And again, this is just us humbly putting this out in front of you and saying, help us make this better. And we really do hope that you get involved. With that, have a very great week ahead. For those of you that celebrate, happy Thanksgiving going into next week. And we hope to stay in touch. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Thank you.